Jessica, you are public comment if you'd like to make any. No. Okay, then we will go into closed session. Thank you.
Do you want to approve the agenda?
And do roll call.
I'm sorry, I skipped.
She's anxious.
We are approving the agenda for both the special meeting and the total meeting. And so is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Please
All in
vote.
Thank you.
We have 4 ayes, 1 absent with Ms. Stevens.
She's coming.
All right,
Motion carries.
now we will go.
Roll call.
What have I got here? I'm sorry, folks. I'm doing this without my glasses, I guess. Okay, roll call.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye, here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mr. Heyman.
Here.
Mr. Maurer.
Here.
Ms. Stevens. Here. 5 present. We have a quorum.
Okay, now can we go into closed session? Okay. Okay. One more minute, please. Ready? Are we ready, Rika?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're going to call the meeting back to order, and we are going to have the Pledge of Allegiance. Laura, would you lead us in the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing.
Heavenly Father, please be with us this evening as we make a number of decisions on a number of matters. And please give us the strength to look at both sides equally and fairly and try to assess ourselves as to what is the best approach to take, both as a council and as the general public. We want to thank you for encouraging the general public to come and give of their time and their talent and to come and speak and share their ideas with us as we all try to work through this together to move the city forward. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. The city attorney's report, please.
Madam Mayor, City Council met in closed session for the special meeting that was described in the agenda. The meeting was adjourned until after the regular meeting, and then the council will resume the closed session.
All right, council, if you please join me at the podium.
Are we on here? Good. Okay, so I have a proclamation of the City of Ridgecrest, California, DMV Donate Life California Month. So whereas organ, tissue, marrow, and blood donation are life-giving acts of recognized worldwide as expressions of compassion to those in need, and whereas more than 113,000 individuals nationwide and more than 21,000 in California are currently on the National Organ Transplant waiting list, and on average, 20 people die each day while waiting due to the shortage of donated organs. And whereas the need for donated organs is especially urgent in Hispanic and African American communities, and whereas more than 600,000 units of blood per year are needed to meet the need in California alone, and whereas at any given time, 6,000 patients are in need of volunteer marrow donors, and whereas a single individual's donation of the heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, pancreas, and small intestine can save up to 8 lives. Donation of tissue can save and heal the lives of up to 75 others, and a single blood donation can help 3 people in need. And whereas millions of lives each year are saved and healed by donors of organs, tissues, marrow, and blood, and whereas the spirit of giving and decision to donate are not restricted by age or medical condition, and whereas nearly 15 million Californians have signed up with the state-authorized Donate Life California Donor Registry to ensure their wishes to be organ, eye, and tissue donors are honored, and whereas California residents can sign up with the Donate Life California Donor Registry when applying for or renewing their driver's licenses or ID cards at the California Department of Motor Vehicles. Now, therefore, be it resolved that in recognition of National Donate Life Month, the month of April 2019 is hereby proclaimed DMV Donate Life California Month in the City of Ridgecrest, and in doing so, we encourage all Californians to check yes when applying for or renewing the driver's license or ID card, or by signing up at www.donatedlifecalifornia.org or www.donevidacalifornia.org. Proclaimed this third day of April 2019 by our Mayor, Peggy Breeden, and the rest of the City Council members. I'd like to present this to Charles Pruitt. He's representing the DMV. So, thank you, sir.
I'm representing Building Procurement Organization from Southern California.
Okay, very good.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you very much for this presentation. I truly appreciate the support you're showing for Donate Life Month here in the state of California. I myself am here because someone was a donor. In 2014, I received the liver of a young man who died as a result of motorcycle injuries, accident injuries. And if it weren't for that, I wouldn't be here. I would have perished in 2014. I recognize the great strides you guys have made to present this proclamation. We truly appreciate it. Everything helps to bring awareness to the need for organ and tissue donors and blood donors. During the time that I was in the hospital waiting my transplant, in about a 3-week period, I received over 176 units of whole blood, plasma, and platelets to keep me going and keep me alive to get to the point where I could receive a transplant. Being here to speak to you guys and to promote awareness of organ and tissue donation is sort of my small way of paying back my incredibly good fortune for receiving my liver in 2014. And so I do as many of these as I can just to reach out and to say thank you to both my donor and to the people that are donors, have the pink dot on their license, or have registered at donatelifecalifornia.org. So thank you very much, and once again, we appreciate it, and hope to see you again one of these days. Thank you.
I'm going to ask a personal question. How many of you are listed as donors here? Wow. Think of it. 85 lives? Wow. Thank you so much. Good job. Okay. Sorry. Thank you. Okay.
Your flash didn't go off.
It's okay.
Okay.
I'd like to ask all the Masons to come up, please.
You can get us all in one shot.
Good to see you.
This is a proclamation of the City of Ridgecrest, California, declaring April 2019 as Public Schools Month. Whereas Freemasonry is built upon a commitment to truth and equality, two principles at the heart of improving ourselves in the spirit of providing free public education. Whereas since California's founding, Freemasons have made a difference in our communities by supporting the cause of public schools, including leading the first Public Schools Week in 1920. And whereas Masons believe that civil societies depend upon a well-educated citizenry to thrive, thus making an investment in our public schools essential. And whereas Freemasons in California continue to galvanize statewide support of public education with investment in success, scholarships, Masonic Youth Leadership scholarships, and family literacy engagement through raising a reader. Now therefore be it resolved that in recognition of Public Schools Month, the Ridgecrest City Council acknowledges California Masons who take steps to help write the future for California schools by renewing their commitment to students, teachers, staff, and administrators by supporting California Masonic Foundation programs on behalf of public schools, volunteering as tutors, mentors, and readers, and helping maintain school grounds that will truly make a difference for public education and our local communities. Proclaim this third day of April 2019 by Mayor Peggy Breeden and the 4 council members. Who wants to receive this?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Speak?
Speak.
Don't give me that microphone. You don't know how long do we have?
2 minutes.
Okay, very simple. We all know the saying that if you think the cost of education is pretty stiff, try ignorance. And we also know that if you can read this, thank a teacher. The rest, obviously, if you can read it here in this country, in a free country, thank a veteran as well. But I must also say that my father recently, a couple of years ago actually, passed away. And just before he did, he called me over and he wanted to say, I just really feel terrible. I wish I could have given you more. And I told him, the one thing you did give me was an education. With that, I've been able to provide for my family, 7 sons, several dozen grandchildren, a couple of great-grandchildren. But the fact is that also infected all of their lives. They have gone on to receive degrees, become self-employed. They've joined the military. They've run large companies. And I'm very proud of them. None of it would have happened had I not first had that seed of education. And for that, I thank him and I thank all of you. Thank you very much. Oh, we'll stand here just like we like each other. Okay. Say money. We have all the problems.
We'll get it at that end. Let's get it at here. Come on, Wall. Don't be shy.
You're a big tall man.
I just stand against the wall. That's all good. All good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I second all of them all.
Is that right? Thank you. Thank you. Cool. Yes, sir. Always. Always.
Jed, or do you want to come up? Sarah, or do you want to wait for us, or you want to do it?
Whatever you want.
I would like us all to be here if you don't mind. Thank you.
Oh, no, I would sit. Mine's long.
Oh, that's okay. You're worth it.
I'm just giving you information.
All right, then, okay. All right. Let's sit.
Okay, tonight I was just wanting to give you guys a little bit what's going on at the PD and where we're headed with some of our life-saving measures. As you know, we already deploy defibrillators, AEDs, with all of our patrol officers. So that program has been huge. We've saved a lot of lives with that. So now this is the next step where we're headed. So this is our naloxone program and our prescription drug drop-off. So just a little bit about the naloxone contradicts opioids. So opioids can be prescription drugs such as oxycodone, hydrocodone, morphine. There's others in that category as well. Fentanyl, which is a synthetic opioid, and it's 50 to 100 times more powerful than morphine. And then you have the illicit manufactured fentanyl, and of course heroin, which is the illegal opioid. And some of the fentanyl is also illegal, but it is prescribed for extreme pain management. A little bit of background. Drug overdoses and deaths continue to increase across the U.S. From 99 to 2017, we've had more than 700,000 people die as a result of a drug overdose. And around 68 of those deaths, about more than 70,200, are as a result of an opioid. In 2017, the number of deaths involving opioids was 6 times higher than it was in 1999. So you can see where we're headed here. From 99 to 2017, almost 400,000 people died for overdosing from an opioid, including prescription and illicit drugs, opioids. So how did we get here? How did we get to this problem? And there's 3 waves that can be attributed to this. The first wave is the increased prescription or prescribing of prescription drugs. And that's been on the increase since about 1999, which is probably when they really started tracking this as they saw it becoming a problem. The second wave began in about 2010 with the rapid increase of overdose deaths as a result of heroin. And then the third wave began in 2013 with significant increases in deaths regarding synthetic opioids, which would be your fentanyl. And that market continues to change because what they're doing now with fentanyl is putting it in heroin, putting it in pills, cocaine, different types of drugs to mask the fentanyl and to get the desired effect they want. They use a lot less of it. Obviously, it's 50 to 100 times more powerful. So the rate on return for their money is huge. Fentanyl can bring a lot of money. So this is what the waves look like. And you can see if you can see it, I think it's black. The black wave, the one that takes that huge spike there on the end, that's the synthetic fentanyl type drugs that we're dealing with across the country today. A lot of drugs coming up through San Diego. San Diego has a huge problem with fentanyl. So these are just some of the headlines. I'm trying to keep this short so I could have added a lot more. The exposure to the officers, it doesn't take much. This can be airborne, they can touch it, and they can OD. That's all it takes. And they have zero tolerance to this stuff, that it really has bad consequences. Several officers around the country have OD'd, and luckily they've been able to get treated right away. A lot of agencies carry naloxone to counteract, but even naloxone takes sometimes 4 or 5 doses to counteract it. So what we're doing next month, May, we're going to launch our naloxone program, which is it's a non-addictive. It is a drug, but it's a life-saving drug that really has no bad effects other than to addicts. It can put them in withdrawals rather quickly. So the naloxone that we will use will be about 2 milligrams per dose. Any higher than that can send an addict right into extreme DTs, seizures type things. So that's why we use the small one to hopefully bring them back slower. And if an officer is exposed, we do have the 4 milligram that our watch commander will carry that he can prescribe to them. Every officer will have one, a kit. It's a nasal spray. So you literally, if you recognize that a person is overdosing, then they can break it out, pop the cap off, and dispense it right into a nasal cavity. And even if it is not an opiate, it has no effect then. It doesn't hurt them. It won't do anything. This provides us, usually we get there first. So those precious minutes, even seconds, can make the difference. So that's why we're going this route. The more lives we can save, the better off we are. It works a lot like a defibrillator, though. It will treat the symptom right now, but it does not treat the cause. Unfortunately, addicts need further help than the nasal spray that we're going to give them. That's just a fix to get them up and hopefully get them to some kind of treatment or something else. How we got this product, it is very expensive, but thanks to Ridgecrest Regional Hospital, Liberty Ambulance, and Kern County Environmental Health, it's free for us. And then one of my guys, Mike Ogus, we stole him from Liberty Ambulance, so we have our own paramedic, really, that's working most days. And then their supervisor, Mike Metcalf, those two are working together and putting together our training program, so it's a huge asset. Our second part of this is already in place. Our prescription drug drop-off, it's in the lobby of the PD. It's available to anybody to come in, drop those old pills or any type of prescription medication, drop it in there. Once that door closes, nobody can get into it. It's got multiple stages in there, so you just can't reach in there. The only ones that can get in it is us when we unlock it. When we go to dispose of the drugs, then we take them to the incinerator in Long Beach with the rest of our drugs that we destroy, and they're gone. We don't want you dumping them down the toilet, putting them in the water system, or anything like that. It's best bring them in. It's at no cost. It's bring them in, throw them in the thing, and go about your day. So this will keep those, hopefully we can keep these out of the hands of our kids or grandkids or anybody else that's looking to get their hands on some of this stuff. And if you have any questions, you can always call us, and if we got to come get it for you, we'll come get it too. This was also free. There was a grant through Rite Aid, and we applied for it, got it, and they shipped it and dropped it off here, and we installed it. So thanks to Rite Aid. And that's what it looks like. So I hope that it gets a lot of use, and we can get some of these drugs off of the street. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Jed, how long have we had this?
This box?
Yes.
About a month and a half, 2 months, we got it.
Do other than this what your announcements? Is there another way that the public is aware that it's there?
No, we're going to, I'm hoping that the media here will run a story on it.
Okay.
And, of course, we'll post it on our Facebook page. And we'll probably hold a big event as where we want you to bring it in on a certain day. And we'll take however many tons of that stuff you want to bring in, and we'll get rid of it. So,
Any kind of medicine?
any kind of medicine.
Okay.
So this spray, is this good for any? It's not just for the fentanyl type ODs. It has good effects regardless of what you're ODing on.
No. Unfortunately, it only counteracts the opioids. So the oxycodone, heroin, fentanyl, and fentanyl is a maybe, hopefully. But oxymorphine, those types of drugs, it has a very good. I've seen it in action a lot. The stuff is amazing.
So it does, like you said, it has no negative effect if
No.
you misdiagnose what they're
No.
going crazy over.
In fact, when somebody's down, usually the treatment is, because if you don't know right away, you treat for an overdose.
Right.
And whether it was a heart attack or what, then you can go into hooking the defibrillator up and CPR and all that stuff.
Is that spray available for the users themselves?
It is. You can buy the spray now at most of Rite Aid, Walmart, places like that, pharmacies.
So
Okay.
if you're hooked and you just self-dose yourself to get through the next day?
With this stuff, ma'am?
Yeah.
No.
With this, okay.
This takes it's an immediate, there goes their high that they were on. It's gone.
I see. Okay, it doesn't cure anything, it just takes.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
It reverses the effects of the opiate.
Okay.
And we've seen this used many times with our paramedics and in the hospital and stuff, and it is truly immediate.
Wow.
They're coming up swinging. So, any other questions?
Other council members? Any of the public want to ask a question?
I just want to say thank you for taking the initiative and getting this done, and it's at no cost, but I think it's going to be great to see extra lives saved.
Yep. Thank you. Yes.
The prescription drop-off box, is there a certain time that we can bring the prescriptions down, and is that for all prescriptions?
It's for all prescriptions. Yeah, you can bring them down if the door's closed. If it's not normal, you can ring
Mary,
the buzzer. Tell them.
they're on the TV. They're not able to hear you.
Here
So
I can
could
say
you
it.
repeat?
So, is there a time that you cannot drop the prescription drugs in the box? The answer to that question is, we're open 24/7. All you have to do is ring the buzzer. If it's not normal business hours, you can walk in and somebody will let you in, so you can put it in there. You're welcome.
Great job. Good job.
Thanks.
Thank you. I thank you. Okay, the next item is public comment. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on an item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Public comment, please.
Mary Ash, and you have my address on file. I really didn't plan on talking tonight, and I got 5 minutes, so I get two things to talk about. One of them is I have some grave concerns over Rusty and Tina Warren's, I think it was $750,000 bill due to City Hall, which ran their business out of moving to their new location. I'm hoping that the city can address this issue. I don't know how you're going to approach it, but I think the least you could do is either figure out a way to restitute some of that money to them or give them an economic development grant. But small businesses are the heart of our community, and I've always stood by them and supported them, and it just, to be honest, bums me out to see two business people who have done so much for our community to be run out of a new location because they ran out of money due to City Hall's I don't know what you want to call it, but just ineptitude. I hate to say the word because I really love you guys, and I know you do the best you can under the circumstances, but to be honest, somebody dropped the ball here. and I hope we can do something to help them out. And then the other thing is, on the Parks and Rec tax, if you pay attention to what I've been writing online, I'm not against supporting City Hall and trying to get things done, but to come and ask the citizens to pay a variable 3.5% rate increase per year, which is permanent, to pay for both Parks and Recreation and the swimming pool is just unfair. Right now, I was reading the other day, I think the state of California is now running almost 11% in taxation overall for their citizens, and it's just a burden to most California residents. And adding this on top of it just makes it a little harder to live here. And to be honest, I know City Hall gets some money for Parks and Rec through property taxes, and so you are receiving money from the property owners for that. And I don't have a problem with paying a assessment as long as it was a short term, i.e. with a sunset clause put on it and for penny pool only, but it's not fair to ask property owners to pay for this permanently. And while I'm at it, going to a sales tax would have been a better choice, because a sales tax is a user tax, and it means everyone throughout the valley would pay for this project versus just property owners, because I know there are a lot of people who come into town who buy things here who could have painlessly paid for this instead of having property owners taxed for it. There's more I could talk about it, but I want to make sure I get done within 5 minutes. And so if you have any questions, you can ask me, and if not, I'll go sit down and be quiet.
Okay, thank you. We
Thank
appreciate
you for listening.
it.
Take care.
Dave Matthews, address is on file. I'm concerned about what Mary Ash had brought up about the Warrens. I think they have done a lot for this community, so anything this community and the city council can do for them would be great, because they are good citizens, believe me. The other thing the main thing I wanted to comment on was the chief's presentation there about the opioids. He alluded sort of to a problem which maybe some of you are aware of, you should all be aware of, and that is a lot of these illicit drugs, and I emphasize illicit, which means that they're manufactured out of country, under no control of the drug and administration, whatever they call it. And that is that a lot of these come across our southern border. He alluded to a lot of it coming up through San Diego. Well, it doesn't start at San Diego. It comes up south of the border. Now, how do I know that? How do they know that? Because they seize a lot of these items from people that they do get to search when they're coming across. So the statistics are there, and I would like to see this council or this city take the initiative and write a proclamation or send a letter to the White House endorsing closing the border, because that's the only way we're going to get a handle on this situation. Now, people talk about, as soon as you talk about closing the border, people say, well, we can't do that because we got a lot of commerce. Well, the reason you got a lot of commerce coming across is because they put restrictions in force in this country that drove a lot of the economics south of the border. And we can't now, maybe in some instances, replace some of that. The avocado industry was one that they mentioned, but the reason you don't see many California avocados on the shelves is because they don't get the water, because the environmentalists, whoever, and don't get me wrong, I like protecting. I've protected the environment ever since I was that high, which is not very high, and because of restrictions for the water use in the Central Valley, and the Central Valley was and should be still part of the breadbasket of this country. So I just wanted to point that out and hopefully maybe give a hint to something that the council here could do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Breeden, esteemed members of the Ridgecrest City Council. My name is Jan Bennett. I'm the interim executive director of the Ridgecrest Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber would like to weigh in on a topic that Scott O'Neill brought up a few weeks ago, having to do with the permit and processing of permits for real estate development here in Ridgecrest. Two of the Chamber's core values are helping to create a strong local economy and also to represent the interests of business with government. Those are the values and that are the reasons for my comments tonight. We'd like to pledge our support to the integrated effort begun by the Indian Wells Valley EDC and the Ridgecrest Area Association of Realtors to develop a written guide to define the planning and the permitting process. We think that that is an excellent suggestion, and we think it will add transparency and eliminate surprises that so often create frustration and delays, not only on the part of the developer, but of the city staff as well. We want to let you know that we're ready, willing, able to join in that effort that's already been started by the IWV EDC to work with city staff, developers, builders, and other community representatives to address those challenges in developing a streamlined process for the development of our city. We thank you for your time tonight, and thank you for your service to the city. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan. And our thanks to the Chamber, too.
Good evening, Council. Mike Neal. Just like to address a couple of points about the proposed parks tax assessment that I don't believe that people should allow all the other talk on what are really kind of peripheral issues, such as, well, what's the tax, and do I mind paying that much tax, and what are we going to fix with the tax, and so forth and so on, which is pretty much all of the conversation that's gone on here for about 8 months on this. People need to understand that this tax is basically a taking of your property. That's what a property tax is. You're going to put this tax on only the property owners in town. Anybody who does not own property comes into town and uses these facilities, they get basically free use of them. But if you don't pay the tax, you're in big trouble. Don't do that for 5 years, the county will take your property away. Now, I consider that probably the most onerous type of tax that this council could consider putting on its citizens. And there's not any reason they could not have just gone ahead like they already did with Measure L. And they actually somehow or the other talked people into actually increasing the sales tax on themselves. Well, they could have done that again if we even needed it, which you really don't if you look at the books and you pay attention to what's going on and the fact that I don't believe we're even using all of the half of the Measure V money on streets. So you got sales tax money that's really doing nothing but propping up the city reserves there, which you could use
for this if you wanted to, but for some reason, I suppose it was deemed possibly it was easier to talk people into trying to put a tax on themselves. So there it is. The other part of that, and I brought up last time, I'm going to bring it up some more, people really need to pay attention to this, is that they have not been represented in the putting forth of this tax. Basically, the city manager took it on himself to decide we needed to have a tax, and he started the process with hiring of consultants and getting their advice and their help and figuring out how to put it forward. And this council just basically kind of rubber stamped, saying, okay, well, we'll put this up for a vote towards the people. I don't recall one single council meeting where this list was presented to the public. Public comment and debate was solicited on this list. Public comment and debate was solicited and taken over whether we even need to think about a tax. Any of the council members, per se, talking to any of the civic groups about it, that was all city managers doing, him and his parks director and several other staff members. Be interested to know how much of our time we're paying for they use to do that. That's the wrong way to go about it. And that, like I said last time, is the reason I will never vote for a tax like this when it was put forward in an improper fashion, and the people of this town were not given their proper opportunity. They were not represented by the supposed representatives they elected to sit in their place on this council. So they should never vote for a tax where they did not get their proper opportunity to have their input prior to the decision to even put it up for a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stan Ratora. I've got two topics, so I'll try to be brief on both of them. First of all, I'd like to recognize a city milestone. This month is the third anniversary of forming an ad hoc committee to fast track the Navy sewer negotiations. We started working with the Navy prior to 2008 to develop a joint wastewater treatment plant. We've been expediting the negotiations for the last 3 years. To my knowledge, there is no end in sight. I don't believe any of the members of the public know what's going on. And I think that needs to come to an end. After 3 years of expediting our negotiations, I think it's time to come back to the public and tell the public what's really happening with all the money that we had been paying since I believe it was 2012 when we tripled our wastewater treatment plant fees. Anyway, I would like to see an agenda item put on the City Council where we can talk about the wastewater plant, where we are, why we're where we are, what's going on, is there any end to the current process, which, again, what I'm saying is, to my knowledge, there's no end in sight, and there has to be. We've been paying for a new wastewater treatment plant now since 2013 when the fees went up. So anyway, I would like to see an agenda item that clarifies everything that's going on there. Second topic is 4 years ago, we bought a new accounting system. I worked really hard at trying to get the City Council to provide updates and briefings on where that accounting system was, how was it progressing, how was it working, et cetera, et cetera. Now I'm hearing from various sources that the system is still not up and running, the one that we paid $500,000 or $600,000 for. There are still aspects of it that the city doesn't understand. We can't go back and find out who contributed what money for what, that kind of thing. So I think another agenda item that we should have on the City Council is where are we with regard to fully integrating this new accounting system into the city's plan? The accounting system is a backbone of understanding where our finances are. If we don't understand the accounting system, we can't use it. We're going to have real problems from here on out. I mean, I understand we lack money, but it would be nice to be able to track the money that we do have so that we can use those funds as efficiently as possible. So a second agenda item, I would like to see the whole status of where we are with regard to that accounting system as a primary agenda item for a city council meeting in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment? Okay, I know this is not a time when we take public comment and answer because there's not a debate back and forth, but is there anybody on the council or staff who would like to briefly address anything at this point in time?
I'll address it during my city manager comment.
Pardon me?
I can address it during my city manager comment.
Please.
He means at the end.
At the end of the meeting.
Oh, okay, from your manager's report. Okay. All right. Is there any council who'd like to ask a question or do anything? Okay, we are looking at most everything, I believe everything you all said, and we will, in our reports, give information back to you as soon as possible. Okay, council, there is no other public comment, correct? Okay, council announcements? Anyone? Mike? Scott?
None.
Would you like to say anything, council announcements? Wallace? Lindsay?
There's a movie night coming up. Let me pull it up. We have 2 movie nights coming up, one in April. Sorry, it disconnected from the internet. Jason, what are the dates? Do you remember? May. Okay, hold on. Give it just a second. It's pulling up. So we have one on April 13th at 8 p.m. That will be Peter Rabbit. And then we have the makeup movie night from When the Wind Caused the Cancellation for Friday, May 17th at 8 p.m. And that's the Nut Job 2. So, oh, yes. And the 27th will be the Splash Pad grand opening at 11:30 out here at Freedom Park.
Okay, I would just like to make 2 notes. One, we have the Chamber Follies this weekend on Friday and Saturday night, and if you want to see business people and community leaders have fun and make fun of themselves, it's a good night at the fairgrounds. It starts at 7:30, doors open at 6:30. And on Friday night, there's an autism awareness auction, an excellent organization that does a great job for this community. I also would like to ask, I had a person come to me about a youth dream center, and the lady made an excellent presentation to me about what she'd like to see done, and she was looking for it to be a church-oriented center, and yet perhaps have it in the city. And I told her I did not think that was something we would be able to do. But I told her I would pass this on to, if she was looking for something that was non-denominational and not a type of conversion experience, but just a helping kids, and these were older kids. She was thinking 12, 13, 14 on, and not that it would be a way to keep track of young people. So I'm going to ask if this would go to the committees involved and look at it and come back to the lady. All her information is there. I think she's got some pretty good points, and we could look at that. Okay, no other questions or anything? Okay, we will come to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by city staff and will be approved in one motion if no member of the council or the public wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, that item may be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered separately with public comment before action is taken. Do any members of the council wish to have any of these items removed that I'm going to read? Item number 4, approved draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority Housing Authority regular meeting dated March 20th, 2019. Item number 5, resolution affirming the approving of the annual investment policy. And number 6, Ridgecrest Area Visitor and Convention Bureau report. Is there anyone who'd like to have any of these items removed?
5 and 6.
Item 6?
5 and 6.
5 and 6, okay. Anyone else? Okay, is there any public who would like to have any of these items pulled? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve of item 4.
So moved.
Second.
He's holding up a finger saying just 1 second. That was the wrong way to say that, wasn't it? Yeah, he's giving you the finger. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, item number 5. Would you come up and address us on it, please?
I just had a quick question because I'm no longer on the Finance Committee. Are we still looking at different options for investing?
Did you want staff or the committee to address it?
She's coming up.
Okay.
So we are,
Get your mic
oh, is that on?
Gotta get close.
Okay. So we are looking into different options, but right now LAIF is earning 2.44%. So the current options that we have, they start at about 2.35 and go up to about 2.7. Okay. So we can still look into it, but with LAIF doing as well as it's doing, I don't know if we really need to.
And is it doing better than it has been doing previously? Because I think before, wasn't it under even 1% at a certain point?
Yeah, it didn't start going up to 1% until fiscal year 18, and in fiscal year 19, it's been above 2%.
Okay. And do we have any idea if that's supposed to stay? No idea.
Depends on the market, but the
Okay.
market's actually doing really well right now.
Right.
Your report said that there were no changes anticipated in it specifically, but that you were looking at other options. So we are you're asking us to approve it as it exists now, and you'll come back to us with other options that may raise the interest rate more depending on what it is. Is there anything other than interest that's a guiding factor of keeping everything the same?
There's also insurance. For a CD, the insurance only covers $250,000, whereas LAIF, it's a little bit more secure. So that's something to think about as well.
So you're saying if we were to put it into a bank or something, it's capped at being federally insured for $250,000?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other council questions? Any other public questions? Okay, motion?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, Lindsay, number 6.
Yes. Number 6. So the RACVB, I think it's great that we have one and that we have so much money for it. But I did receive a lot of complaints about the bed billboard that was recently redone.
The what? I'm sorry?
The billboard that's just like of a giant
yes.
bed where
Mm-hmm.
camping is so last century. Because we had received complaints before about the yellow arrow one, and then the bed one, they
Yeah.
didn't like it even more. So
I agree with you, and we're working on getting it off of there.
okay.
The minute it went up, we didn't like it, especially at night. It washed out on the right, so we don't like it. So,
Okay.
but it's just a matter of having to, produce a new one and money, but we're going to take care of it.
And I also noticed, I I headed to Mammoth a few weeks ago, and on that road towards Mammoth, there was still a billboard for the Petroglyph Festival for
Yes.
the one back in November.
Well, the date, there should not be a date on there. It should be
It
just,
had a date and a year.
are you talking about the one in Mojave or the one on the chamber sign? The one in Mojave's down.
So no, it was north, heading towards Mammoth. So towards Lone Pine. And it was partially. Okay.
I will check on that. It
Okay.
should say annual. The one in Mojave had a date. We dropped it, and that one should say annual, but I'll check on it.
Okay.
It should not have a date on it, that's true.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from council? I appreciate the work that you do, the dollars you bring into this community.
Thank you.
Do you anticipate any changes at all for this coming year based on what you've seen?
I see kind of a downturn. If you've been following the TOT tax and the TBIT tax, we've got a little downturn. We're hoping that we can get a turn. We've got a massive amount of money going into social media. Our marketers work on it day and night trying to get more forks here. So we're kind of going into a dip right now, but let's hope we pull it out. We're trying really hard.
I've heard of 3 different contingents that are coming in, 2 from the base and 1 out at the airport in the
Yes,
next couple of months.
that's
And it looks like significantly more dollars than we had anticipated based on the years past.
And our wildflowers are helping us. We had a little tick up on our,
Exactly. That was
our
gonna be my
TOT
second
this
thing.
last week, so we hope it just keeps gaining for us. So, because we run together with those numbers, you know, your numbers and our numbers, you know, we kind of run together. So,
Okay. Is there any other council questions or comments? Any public comments?
Yeah.
pretty good, Dave.
You're approving a report which I think was never given.
Yeah.
I never heard it.
It's online. It's here.
Everybody doesn't go online, Mayor.
I'm sorry, sir, that you don't. Would you like me to give you a copy?
Oh, well, you know, it's just another piece of paper. It should have been given here. Why? It usually is. And that's why I'm questioning it. Why wasn't it given?
We will hand it out, but it's about 40 pages long.
Right. I'll get one for you. I'll give it to you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll make sure we get one for you next year, and we'll have copies out front. Okay. So is there a motion to approve, accept this report?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, the next item is discussion and action items. Request by resolution for acceptance of the 2019 Engineering and Traffic Survey Report and authorization to post the speed zones accordingly. Mr. Culp. And Mr. Lauer, are you coming up also, sir? Okay.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, Public Works Director and I are going to double team you tonight. This item before you tonight is for accepting the 2019 Engineering and Traffic Survey Report and to authorize the posting of speed zones accordingly. My role in this is the overall project manager for the SSARP, which is the Systematic Safety Analysis Report project. And there are many elements to this SSARP program. And one small element of that is this speed survey. So what I'd like to do is give you a little background. This SSARP program was funded by the federal government. There's $67,500 that's been funded by the feds with a small amount of matching funds by the city. But we have a very extensive scope of work that's going to be provided by this program. I'll just briefly go through the different tasks here for you. One of the tasks is widening of the roadways and realignment, and these are all studies and evaluations. Restoring pavement markings and delineations, modifications of traffic signal vehicle heads by removing and an installation, evaluation of traffic signal pedestrian heads, evaluation of pedestrian push buttons, reflectorized and/or illuminated street name signs at intersections, install and upgrade intersection warning and regulatory signs and pavement markings, evaluation of traffic signal and intersection improvements, establish uncontrolled intersections with crosswalks, establish all-way stop controls, crosswalks for pedestrian paths, bike routes, traffic safety measures of movement, restrictions, and medians, stop signs, stop sign warrants, speed study, which is the task that you're being asked to approve tonight, and finally, doing 24-hour two-way traffic counts on 32 streets within our city, updating our traffic volume counts. So this SSARP again was funded by the federal government with small matching funds by the city. We had solicited for engineering services. Wildan Engineering was a successful engineering firm that was selected for the project. And what I'd like to do now is allow Bard to go into detail on the engineering speed survey. Bard has extensive background in these engineering speed studies, and so he's, as the municipal code indicates, Bard is your designated traffic engineer. So with his experience and designation as a traffic engineer, he has more specific information which he can enlighten you on this traffic study.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I have a presentation I'm hoping got on.
As far as I know, it's on.
No, just hit this. Okay.
Also, Bard, could you get a little bit closer to the mic if possible?
I can.
We'll turn it up,
All right,
too.
try
but
that. There we
thank
go.
you.
So this is a portion of the study that Lauren was talking about. It's the Engineering and Traffic Survey 2019 in March. The speed survey. Why do we need to do one? Well, everybody knows what a speed trap is, or at least I'm assuming that you do. California vehicle codes require speed surveys every 5 years to prevent speed traps and to establish reasonable speed limits. So what happens is you cannot use radar or speed tracking items to ticket someone if you don't have a current speed study. What that prevents is going from 50 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour with no notice and being able to catch people and doing a speed trap, basically. So speed surveys are required by the state of California to determine the speed limits and to allow to allow the police department to enforce them. So they use the 85th percentile, which is required by the vehicle code. Now, Lauren says I'm an expert in this. I'm not an expert in this. I've just had to explain this 100 times to other people in other areas. So what's an 85th percentile? The 85th percentile is a speed at or below which 85% of the existing traffic travels. The thought on this is, I'm sorry, I won't lean back. The thought on this is that people only drive at a speed that they feel safe at. Well, think about it. If you didn't feel safe driving 50 miles an hour, you wouldn't drive 50 miles an hour. So the way this is based on, they said that they were to go out and take current speed surveys to see what people feel safe driving. And they set it at the 85th percentile, has to be below that. So they go out and they take speed surveys, and they do the calculation that shows that the speed limits should be this. All right. So this threshold represents what is historically found to be a safe and reasonable speed for most drivers based on common roadway conditions. So, well, I keep hitting the wrong button. I'm sorry. So what was done was they went out and did speed surveys on 48 streets that the city wanted to be able to enforce using radar speed measurement devices. A good example of how roadway segments are reviewed is on page 2 and 3 of the report. But basically it talks about speed sampling, which is the radar, collision history, and conditions not readily apparent to motorists. So what they do is they go out and do their speed survey. They do their 85th percentile, and then they say, here's what it should be. And then they look at the other things and go, okay, we have the ability to reduce this by 5 miles an hour if we can come up with reasonable engineering reasons. And when Jed and his people and I and our people sat down to look at the survey, we went through this and said, okay, we really don't want to see the speed limit raised here because you need to have consistency. So where they went from 45 to 40 to 45 over on the same road, we said, all right, consistency is more important. And so did the engineering firm. They said the same thing. So we went through. We had arguments about some of them. Some of them we could convince the engineering firm that, yes, we want to keep it here. We don't want to raise it. No, we're going to have to take care of it. And where it was possible, we used, or not possible, where it was needed, we used that 5 miles an hour that we were allowed to change things and used that. Now, if the speed limit, the average speed was 43, you round up. If the average speed is 42, you round down. So if it was 43 and they rounded up to 45, you then have to be able to use your 5 miles to keep it at 40. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, again, you have to have a reason to do the 5 miles an hour. You just can't just say, I want to use the 5 miles an hour. So Table 2 shows the results of all streets in the city. But what's more important is Table 1, which shows the ones that are going to change. All right. So I've put a synopsis of basically what Table 1 says here. So China Lake Boulevard from Upjohn to College Heights. It's currently 35 and 45. The new speed limit will be 40 over the entire stretch. China Lake Boulevard from College Heights to Downs. To Downs? Yeah, that goes further south, I'm sorry. It's 45 and 55. It's going to be 50. This makes it consistent over the whole pieces. College Heights, Franklin Avenue to Kendall. It's currently 50 and it's going to raise to 55. That's going up by 5. College Heights, Kendall to Javis. Again, it's currently 50 and it's going up to 55. It's going up by 5. College Heights, Javis to the south end is 50 going to 55. It's going up. Now, these are going up. Let me explain one more time why things go up. They went out there and surveyed the speed people were driving, and they set it at the 85th percentile, and this is what it came out to be. Drummond Avenue, Mahan to Downs was 35. It's gone up to 40. French Avenue, Drummond to China Lake, it was 40. It's going to 45. Norma Street, Las Flores, to Argus, it's 30 to 35. This is one that both Public Works and the police department fought because we thought it was judged that this would be much better at 30. However, we'd already used the percentage, and we could not get it to 30. So if we want to use radar on these streets, and I believe Jed said, yes, I will turn around and look to make sure. We want to be able to use radar on these streets. The speed limit will need to be raised to 35. Norma to Argus, Ridgecrest Boulevard, again, 30 to 35. Now, these are all of the changes. The rest of them stayed the same. So that's why I thought this table was more important than the rest of them. But you can see the 85th percentile, what reason it might have been used to reduce it, that type of thing, by looking at Table 2.
Well, I think the city moves a little bit too slow anyway, so if you're pumping the speed up in 8 out of 10 categories, you got my vote. So there you go.
All right, well, there was, 28 streets that they did this on, and we're only raising it on, I believe, 9.
Well, 7 and the other 2 you kind of
Yeah.
But the only problem I see is Norma Street. I agree with the speed, but from Las Flores to Ridgecrest Boulevard is basically a residential street. It's a very fast-moving residential street, but it's a residential street, so I'm not sure I'm not sure the residents along there are going to be very happy with this.
Right. So one of the arguments that we made is there is a thing you can use that says that residential areas with a certain amount of housing, you can have a private fascia speed set of 25. The problem with it is the roadway can only be 2 lanes, and Norma is wider than that. So it doesn't qualify for the prima facie. We did make the argument. So I agree with you, and those are the arguments we made, but if we want to be able to use radar on the street,
What about on Drummond between Mahan and Downs, because that's going to be a residential street too, with the new housing development.
If I remember correctly, I don't have it in front of me, Lauren, I'm sorry, but if I remember correctly, that was to keep it consistent all the way from Mahan to China Lake is the reason that one changed. Is that correct, Lauren?
Yeah, it is also designated as a arterial. It is designated to have a center median and only to have interruptions at intersections. There will be no private driveways on that Drummond Reach. Only intersecting streets. It will have medians, and it is designated as an arterial.
So I'd like to bring that back, actually, because I don't want to see us put a median on Drummond there, because I don't think we need to add another median to take care of at this point in time, because we can't take care of what we have. So adding another median, I know that was a city council decision before I got on council, but I think at this point in time we should not be adding any more medians.
If you look at what the city has decided to do as an overall program, the medians and those were selected as. You're going to have to help me. Is it in the? It's not in the municipal code, but it's in the general plan.
It's in the general plan, but it says it's a suggested cross section. It doesn't say that it's mandated that we have to put those medians in. So I'd like to really bring that back.
It is in the municipal code as well, under the subdivision chapter 19.
Okay.
It's called out as traffic islands, however, but median is what it actually is.
Okay. But please make a note, Rick, of that.
Aren't some of those medians already there?
No, the new section between Mahan and Downs.
Well, actually, between Mahan and Downs, the west end is already in.
Yeah.
And this will just finish it between the rest of it.
The east half,
right,
from Downs west.
Also, one of the things that it doesn't have crossovers for all the streets. If you have people coming out and crossing over 2 lanes of westbound traffic, and then I don't know if there's going to be there'll be a center turn lane if there's no median. So to get to the other ones, it can become. It's not that I'm not looking at you. I'm trying to think at the same time. It's there as a safety measure, okay, and that's why it's there. So, again, council can decide to change the general plan. Council can decide to change the municipal code, but at this point in time, it was actually conditioned in the development, and there was concessions given to actually build it. The cities actually, with their traffic impact fees, are paying to build.
But we could use those traffic impact fees in a different way, though.
You'd be surprised how limited we are on using the traffic impact fees, but I would agree with you that they can be used for other things. But anyway, so that's actually not part of this discussion.
Right.
But
okay.
So what we're asking, and Lauren will come back to this in just a second, is that we want you to approve this portion of the study. And the reason we're not bringing the whole study and discussing everything is that we need to have speed studies within 5 years for the police department to continue to make this enforceable. So that's why we brought this portion at this time.
And that was the point of doing the study in its entirety, right?
No.
We weren't just
No.
spending, well, I'm saying to clarify, because I think one of the newspapers made it seem like it was kind of silly that we were spending money doing this, but we're doing it so that it can be enforced legally.
Okay, this portion of the study, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, but
Okay.
the entire study
Right.
is looking at things that we will be able to put in for safety improvement money and grants and that
Right.
type of thing. And by having this study, it's actually going to be required in the future to have a study like this to be able to apply for any of the safety grants at all.
Okay.
Yeah, what is the
Exactly.
timeline when they put these monitors? Is it for a week or 2 weeks or what?
They come out and they do it for several different days at different times, is what I remember them saying.
Yeah, it has to be during an off-peak period. It has to be done for at least a specified amount of time. I can't recite, excuse me, can't recite the exact criteria, but there is criteria on the time.
So
in
time
which
of
it can
day,
be done.
days of week, and
And it can't be a large platoon of cars. It has to be something that is typical and characteristic of that roadway section during a
It looks like so
period
far
of time.
they did it back in December on the 4th, 5th, 6th, 11th. Sorry, I'm scrolling through. I see those are the, but it says in the study it gives the sheet with the data for
Yeah, I
each
believe
of
the
them.
data sheets are in there that give the time of days. and so forth.
If you would like a smile to go along with that piece, I've been asked several times, well, tell me when they're going to come out with that. I'll come and drive really slow and hold everybody up.
Yeah.
So, this has got to be, so they don't do it during peak hours. They don't do it during when school's getting out. They don't, they do it at a normal time when traffic is, well, if traffic's ever normal. But yes.
I have a question I'd like to ask. In looking through all the streets you had listed, it appears that we must be the most law-abiding people in the world, because the average speed on almost every street except one, and I think it was Javis, was lower than the speed limit. And I'm wondering, was there anything that said that? And then I also did not see truck routes in there. I would have liked to have seen some of them, because God bless our people who make deliveries in this town, and thank you for all of you who bring product to us that we need. But it seems like sometimes, especially down Ridgecrest Boulevard and up Norma and Channel Lake Boulevard, I see trucks going what I think is faster than traffic is going, and wondering how they accomplish that. One, they're not pushing them out of the way, but they do appear to be going faster. So if you could talk about how the average speed was, I mean, like on this one, Bowman, the average speed, the limit was 50 miles per hour, and the average speed was 44.
All right. Now, I need to ask a question, since I apologize. I didn't print out the
That's
entire
okay.
report. One of the questions I need to ask is that the existing speed limit is 40 or 45 or whatever it was.
It says the recommended speed limit is going to be 50.
Okay. So what it is, the recommended speed limit is going to go up. All right. What's happened in most cases is at 44 it goes to 45, and then they may have said, okay, but we want to keep these three pieces of roadway at the same speed, so we're going to do keep the speed limit uniform. Like I said, one of the ones that we looked at was Drummond from Mahan all the way to China Lake,
Yeah.
and it seemed to, when we first looked at it, it dropped in the middle. So it was 45, 40, 45, and we're going, okay, we either need to make them all 40 or we need to make them all 45, because you need consistency. The one where we didn't get that is because we don't necessarily have control of all the roads. China Lake, we only control and we only do our speed surveys from Ridgecrest down to Downs. All right? That's the only ones we control. So as it goes north, it's still going to be 35 and then 45 or 40, I'm sorry, on the north end, because the state controls those. Now, when they do their survey, we'll send them a note that says, hey, ours are these. How about if we try and get some consistency?
Okay. I understand. Thank you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
the answer.
I did have one more quick question, because it says the cost is estimated to be $9,000, but it didn't say where it was coming from.
I don't remember where it was approved for, Lauren.
I don't think
I
you
don't
identified
believe
it.
there was
You didn't say.
a fund attached to that. It was just to identify what the fiscal impact would be, anticipating city crews being able to accomplish the signage and street legends in the street.
Do we print our own street signs?
We do not print our own signs. We buy them already.
Okay.
So we will either work with the companies we already have a PO with, or we'll go out to bid, depending upon how large the change is.
Okay.
Other council questions or comments?
So any changes other than what they've recommended would void the ability to radar enforce the streets?
Yes, you can't go any, I don't know if you can go higher. I know you can't go lower, because that would create the speed trap effect.
And I just asked him, if you can't radar them, what does that mean? And it means that they would have to bumper trail them.
Except the rule says, and just the first time I'd read it, says you can't use speed tracking devices. And I would say traveling behind somebody and tracking their speed is using a speed tracking device. No? Okay, then I'm wrong. Great, I like that. But
one of the concerns I have is on, say, like, going up to the college on the speed's 50, we bring it to, and people want to play the limit, they go 54 or 55, and so we bring it to 55, and now they go 57, 58, and that being such a high pedestrian, walking, and bicyclist area, I just worry about those speeds getting up that high, and is that, tall, where do we?
Each of the speed surveys have a listing on how many pedestrians and bicycles they see along. If you actually read, yeah. I'm not saying you didn't. I'm just saying in the document it states how many pedestrians and how many bicycles, that type of thing, they saw when they were out there. Mm-hmm. On College Heights, it's a totally separate bike path, and moved away from the traveled lane. There are ones on either side as well, but there's a separate. One away from the traveled lane. Now, I thought you were going with the question is it going to be 60 next year or 65? And the answer is no, because 55 is the maximum speed limit we could have on a local street. Yeah. So this one will not go up anymore. But the answer to your question is they took those into consideration. If there had been a high enough number of those type of things, they would have used that to reduce it again.
Yeah, because certain areas where because people still ride bicycles up, up that boulevard quite a bit. Off of the bike path. The bike path has been great. I think it's been one of the better things we've done for everybody. But that road, there's certain, out toward Jack's Ranch Road, there's, on Ridgecrest Boulevard, from the 300 block, out, to the east. There's certain areas where there's been, that I know of, pretty major, if not fatal, accidents, and so. That's one of the concerns that, getting up to those speeds, those are pretty rough impacts.
And I'm agreeing, but it's actually fairly rural out there, but you're right. There are quite a few people that use that for walking up and down, and quite a few people that bicycle up and down as well for exercise or to get up to the college or whichever. But again, they did take that into consideration, and they still recommended the 55
and
mile
there's no
range.
variable plus or minus 5 degrees. Because we have a traffic study, we have to go by that.
Well, there is, and they took into consideration what they could take into consideration, and it still ended up at 55.
Yeah.
Again, all of this was discussed. Now, one thing it doesn't talk about is from Dolphin down, or is it, which one is it? It's still going to stay at 45 because of the Autism Center and the curve right there. It will not raise till 55 to beyond that.
Thanks.
That brings up another point.
Yeah.
Now that we've got the nice county bike and walk path, wouldn't it be safer to take away the bike paths on the road?
Actually, the answer to that is yes and no. Okay, there's been lots of studies that show that a separate bike path is used a lot by walkers and can actually cause problems with bicyclists because they ride too fast in comparison to the walkers, not too fast in general, but and it
only
can,
coming down.
Well, certainly coming down, but that's why they recommend having both.
Okay. When I go up there, and I don't go up very often anymore, but I don't generally see any bicyclists on College Heights anymore.
Oh, there's. I'm sorry, I drive it every day, and there's bicycles on College Heights all the time on the roadway, not just on the bike path.
I had a quick question, not to throw a wrench in, but combined with him asking when it was done and then him bringing that up. Since we did this in December, does the time of year impact the the usage, and would that affect the study outcome?
The answer is you can't do it during the summer because people are off of school and stuff, and that changes the amount. As long as it isn't done over the Christmas break, and it was not, it's a good and valid test.
Okay. So weather doesn't, coldness or anything?
It does not, because weather happens everywhere. Less here than most places.
Okay, any other council comments? Okay, any members of the public would like to address this?
Dave Matthews. I travel that portion on Norman, but between Ridgecrest Boulevard and Los Flores. I think we've got a unique situation there. It doesn't qualify because it's multi-lane going south, but going north, it's a single lane, effectively.
Part of it.
Most of it. Because you don't get the 2-lane until you get off north of Los Flores. But there is where I see many problems, because we have on-street parking, and sometimes there's large vehicles parked on the street, and people are trying to back out of their driveway, and they can't see what's coming, and the drivers going north can't see them coming out. So I think we need to split that or do something, because that's a unique situation. You know, we never used to have this problem. It used to be just residential, so it was 25 miles per hour all the time. And we didn't have it marked like it is now either. So I think we need to reconsider that section. And I will be happy to start a petition for some of the residents on that east side for the traffic going north.
Can you have a different speed limit going one way than the other? It's got to be the same way going both directions, doesn't it?
Well, I suppose if the survey showed different.
Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I suppose if the survey showed different, but I've never seen it show remarkably different speeds going in different directions.
That's part of the problem. They just take their surveys and go about their business. But I'm not the only one. I've seen other people, and I've heard other people complain about that.
Mr. Matthews, I was going to say, and I don't know that this is, but may I?
Please.
We did speak with the people that did the survey. It's not, they write their recommendations, and then the city decides. This is why we're bringing this tonight. Council can say that, no, we're not going to change those two. We're going to keep them. But the consequences are that we no longer can use radar to enforce the speed limit. Council can say, no, we're not going to do any of these. But again, the consequences on those roads will be that you can no longer use radar to enforce the speed limit. As I said earlier, both the engineering group and the police group fought faught's wrong, expressed a strong preference to keep it at 30 miles an hour. And me having some experience in this, I brought up every single possible choice we could do to keep it at 30. And every one of them was shot down, and they showed me where it said that it had to be the way it is in the law. So this is why we are presenting what the consultant said, and we're going to let council make the decision. And that's all we can do at this point in time.
Mr. Matthews.
At this point in time, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But maybe this is a case where we need to push back again on Sacramento. You know, we've got a special situation here as far as I'm concerned. And the law doesn't take that into account.
Yeah, Mr. Matthews, they're already speeding on that road. The 85th percentile.
I can't hear.
They're already speeding on that road. The 85th percentile is 39 miles an hour. That's the problem. So if we
On
want,
both sides.
correct, and if we want to go back to the 25 mile an hour speed limit, we'd have to make that a 2-lane roadway. We'd have to re-stripe.
And it's also width, though, I believe. I can double check on that. But if you make it a 2-lane roadway and you use the residential exception, it must be 25, not 30.
Right. It all boils down to is if it is raised to 35 and we're able to work the LiDAR, then the police department needs to go out and write tickets. Is really what really needs to happen.
No.
So, but if they don't approve it and we keep it at 30, then we cannot write a ticket. And right now, looking at the survey, they're averaging 39 miles per hour anyway. So we're better off, in my view, to approve it.
I hear what you're saying, but we've got a bad law. That's all I'll say.
Well, it's a law to protect the citizens to make sure that their local law enforcement is not engaged in speed traps to make money. And that's what really has set the basic speed law and why this comes about is to protect the average citizen because they do make the presumption that the community does understand what the speed limit should be based upon their driving patterns and habits.
Yes.
Sir?
Okay, this discussion raised some questions. I didn't think I was going to have a comment on this.
Mike, can you lean in? I can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Got it? Can you hear me? Okay. So, just your very past comment, Mr. City Manager, you say the police cannot write speeding tickets on that section of Norma. I believe that's incorrect. They can trail people, clock them, and write tickets. Would that be correct?
It may be a little bit difficult now that we have a survey that basically says 85th percentile should be 35 miles an hour. So we would basically be in the same position because you still, even though you write somebody a ticket, you still have to show that it's unsafe until it reaches the point of the basic speed law at 55 miles an hour. So at that point in time, they're still going to have to justify why they would write the ticket. If we kept it at 30 and wrote somebody for 40, they'd have to justify why that was unsafe for the conditions.
So while this discussion about we can't use LiDAR to ticket people if we don't do the speed survey, was that just not a complete statement? Or, I mean, was it just that we just can't ticket people if we don't do the speed survey? Is that the accurate statement?
We cannot use LiDAR or radar to enforce the speed law.
But you could track them and clock them and write tickets.
If we bumper paste them, yes, we could do that. But then the issue would be is that because we have a study that says it should be 35, it'd be difficult to write somebody at 37, 38 when you have a speed study that says it should be 35, not unless you can show that it was unsafe for the conditions at the time, i.e. if it's snowing, the road's got an inch of snow on it, and you're traveling, 40 miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone, and the safe speed should be 25 because of the conditions.
Right.
We can write for that, but it does make it easier for law enforcement to enforce the speed laws if they have that ability to do that.
All right. Okay. Let's talk about the truth of the matter here. Just in general, speeding tickets. Most people get a speeding ticket. I've actually been in court for other matters, and people have walked in there with a speeding ticket. I don't know why they even go. They go and they plead guilty and they pay the ticket. I would venture to say 98% of the people driving on the road do not even know about speed surveys like this. That could probably be illustrated by the fact that I've been watching, but I've just been out in town over the last year doing my business and seeing the Ridgecrest Police Department LiDARing people on Chilliwack Boulevard. They're not out there just for fun. They're obviously giving tickets. And why were they giving tickets? Because they knew those people would not contest the speeding ticket and get a LiDAR speeding ticket. So there you go. You could not change this section of Norma Street, make it safer for the drivers and the residents there. And the only thing that would have to happen is that the police department would have to do some periodic enforcement where they actually clock people, get behind them, clock them, give them tickets. If you do that for a while, the word gets around. Everybody knows that. People slow down. They'll speed up later on. Police department can do that again. In the meantime, the speed could be kept down to around 30, probably 35, because everybody pushes their luck a little bit, But you don't have to bump it up just so you can LiDAR that section of Norma Street. That's the truth of the matter. Now, I suggest that, and so everybody feels like they've hashed this out enough, that we not approve the change on those two portions of Norma Street and throw that back to City Org and have further discussion and give it its due discussion time and make the decision about that in light of, the complaint by Mr. Matthews, other people, and in consideration primarily of the people that live on that part of Norma Street. They deserve the due diligence to come in and have their say to the City Org Committee, to the council sometime in the future, and get the decision about that part of it made. In conjunction with that, just what I've just observed here, and I guess I'll throw this on to the chief to ask that you make sure that there's a policy in the police department that the patrol officers do not park in parking center entrances to LIDAR. Pardon?
They have permission to park there.
They do?
Yeah.
What about Stater Brothers?
We talked to all those people. All the managers said yes.
So they don't mind you blocking the entrance into the...
I've seen them myself.
Well, we can just talk about that, because it sure looked when I was there the one time that they're basically blocking the exit lane. People that would want to come in and come out at the same time might be funneled into having a potential head-on. So, and I called dispatch, and they left soon thereafter, so it seemed like they decided that maybe they shouldn't be there. I don't know. But, let's please not have, traffic problems created from officers now getting busy trying to lot our people on China Lake Boulevard, because, that's kind of...
Or would you rather have them on the street?
Well, if they have to be on the street,
Line right by them?
well, they have to. I mean, it's a decision as to what's the safest. So I think it's obvious we need to talk about this off to the side, so we'll do that. So that's that. Thanks a lot.
Right, is there any other public comment? Okay, any other council comment? All right, a motion?
Hang on. May I make one more suggestion?
Please.
If council is concerned about this, okay, then I would suggest that you approve this tonight, all right, and ask us not to post new signs on those two until they can go to wherever you would like us to take it for a discussion. Because all I'm saying is that at this point in time, we need an approved speed survey for the city. If we wait, it's a problem. Now, again, if you ask us not to post, to change the signs on Norma at this point in time, it still creates the same problem for the police department. But if it needs further discussion, we can certainly do that. If it doesn't need further discussion, then approve it and don't and tell us to go post them all. But I would suggest that the city needs to have an approved speed survey.
Yeah. I would recommend that you would approve the study and we still post. I mean, it's pretty clear the reason why we do speed surveys is to protect the community, to make sure that if we are issuing speeding tickets, that it is for the appropriate reason. We have the backing that's required for us to be able to write these things. I think by not posting, we're just going to make the issue worse. What we need out there is a little bit more enforcement to make sure people slow down.
Okay.
I'm sorry for butting
in. That was perfect. Thank you. So is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item is item number 8. A resolution of the City of Ridgecrest City Council adopt a road project list for fiscal year 2019-2020, partially funded by SB1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. Sir?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. If you remember, last year I came for the first time to bring, well, one of my first duties was to bring you last year's list. So this is the new 1920 roads program. It was presented to the Infrastructure Committee, and I did not change the lead-in title. It's now being presented to City Council. I apologize. So the overall program for the next 3 seasons is not part of the SB1. I want to say that right now. The only thing that's part of the SB1 is the fall 19 and spring of 2020. I'm presenting the entire program because the infrastructure committee thought it was important that council see the entire program starting with this spring. So the overall program, the yellow is the spring for 2019, and I will go into individual slides as well because I know this is not easy to see. Green is the fall for 2019. Purple are the major streets done using federal or TAB monies. This work will be completed in the spring of 2020 along with the rest of the original neighborhood, which is it looks like it's dark gray from here. So light blue is roads we will begin in the spring of 2020 if Public Works has completed everything else. So let's talk a little bit about each season. So spring of 2019. Remember, this is new to the city, so please be patient. The spring session is our training and practice season. Work will be slow and we will be making mistakes as we're learning to correctly complete this new process. We will improve both our speed and our process as we move through the 6 weeks of our spring session. Training work will begin on the 15th of April. Practice will begin on McLean and Graff. You can see at the very top of the picture there's 2 yellow rows. Is Graff not yellow? No. Well, okay, Graff should be, the little piece of Graff east of China Lake should be yellow as well. Now, if you want to know why, I can most certainly tell you why. It's a long straight road that we can go clear up to the intersection and not bother a single homeowner or business owner. So we thought that's a great place to start. Graff, the same thing in the fact that we can come in, they can come in from the other side if they need to. So some practice will be done on the parking lots around City Hall. Then we'll move into the roads that were prepared for last fall's work, as well as what will be prepared over the winter. So if you see the yellow down at the very bottom, it shows the roads that are already prepped. Public Works crews will do as much work as possible until we run out of materials or time. So the fall 2019. This is the rest of the roads in the neighborhood except Rancho. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading them.
Which one?
It's the gray ones in the right above Church between
California.
Gateway and
California and Commercial.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's where they are. There's a couple actually north of California as well. But we were asked by the water department a couple years ago to leave those, when I first got here last year, so not a couple years ago, to leave those out because they have some water line problems they need to fix. We don't want to go in and do this and then have the water company come on and dig them up the next year. So we also did a desert mix on Gold Canyon earlier this year, so we'd like to set that down. And La Mirage needs some work as well. Since we're in the area, we thought we'd do those. We'll do as much of the work as we possibly can and what we have time to prepare between June and September. This is the spring 2020. The work's going to begin in April. Not show are the few remaining roads in the original neighborhood. Those ones we just talked about that we had to leave out, and we'll do those if the water company is done. Purple are the major roads that we resurfaced more than 5 years ago. For those using federal monies, the cities agreed to maintain the roads when we accepted the federal money. So right now, there's some years between 5 and 10, 12 years old, Lauren?
Yeah, there's Norma is one that was a CDBG project that is approaching 9 years.
Okay. So we need to go back in and coat those. One of the things that I'm sure you've heard about in prior sessions is keeping good roads good. So if we go back in and do ones that were redone in the last 5 to 9 years, we have a chance of keeping them at a high level as we continue into the future. So Public Works, again, will do as much work as possible. It'll probably be dictated by the amount of roads we have time to prepare between November and March. And once we've completed all the roads on the previous list, we'll move into these. Now, in the Infrastructure Committee and on your list of roads, we have Mamie, Sierra View, Scott, Fendrick, and Bryan Circles. I'm sorry?
Sherry.
Sherry? Oh. No.
It's
Oh, anyway, yeah, and anyway, yeah, and Sherry, Mamie. No, it's Mamie. But anyway, those streets were actually done several years ago, and I inadvertently put them on your list. So I've taken them off this map. You can do one of two things. You can actually amend the list and say we want to take those out, or you can leave them in the list because we don't have to do everything on the list for the SB1. So whichever way it works, I'd be happy to take care of it either way. But we won't be resurfacing those because we've already done them recently. All right, so the 1920 program. Program Council is being asked to approve is only the work for 19 and 20. So the work that's scheduled for this spring is not on the list you're approving because you already approved it last year. So by approving this program, the city group allowed, we have to have an approved program for the city to be able to use SB1 or road maintenance and rehabilitation account monies. We get approximately $477,000 next year, if I remember correctly. Just a reminder that preparatory work can take 10 times as long as the actual slurry work. So with cleaning the road, crack sealing, pothole patching, and curb line rehabilitation, it may take the street crew a week or more to prep a street that can be slurried in as little as a couple of hours. There's no point in slurring a road that isn't properly prepared, since it will fail again quickly, and the failure will point to an incorrect slurry process, not lacking proper preparation. Basically, Public Works and everybody else wants this program to work. So we want to do it on roads that are properly prepared, that we can expect good results from. Questions?
Council?
On average, again, I go back to comparable cities. On average, do you know how many years, a town comparable to our size, do they plan? I had a very pointed email from a constituent that said, we need to have a definitive plan when all the roads will be done. So, and then maybe in a 5-year plan or in the 6th year we go into maintenance or something like that. How many years before we do all the roads in town?
I can't possibly answer that at this point in time, and let me explain why. I'm sorry? One of the first tasks that the city manager charged me with was putting together a 5-year plan for our roads. Mm-hmm. I had a very good start on that. Went to the first couple of infrastructure committee meetings, mm-hmm. and basically it turned out that we wanted to move towards a slurry machine instead of doing the way we had taken care of roads in the past, which is absolutely acceptable. The slurry machine is an excellent idea. But that created a problem. I don't know what our crews can do and the amount of work they can do and how much it's exactly going to cost because I don't know how much they can do. Mm-hmm. So what I've done is I put together a year and a half. One of the things that was handed out at the infrastructure committee was a memo that went with this that said at the end of the first 2 sessions, I should have a much better idea of what we can do with the time and the money we have. Mm-hmm. Also, once we do all the streets once, all the streets are prepped as long as we can get back to them every 5 or 7 years. All we'll have to do is maybe crack seal again, and we won't have to do all the pothole patching and things like that. So we'll be able to get a much faster return once everything's been done once. So one of the things that we're looking at is because this might be somewhat slower to begin with, is we'll be able to use a certain amount of the money from Measure V as well as the RMRA money to be able to do all the roads we can do in a year. Well, at that point in time, we'll look at the roads that can't be taken care of by a slurry program and possibly start a paving program. But again, I need to know how much money is going to be left over before I can start to do that. We have a pavement management system pavement management plan that's now 3 years old and needs to be redone. And we're looking at possibly hiring it and doing it in-house so we have control of the actual product that's put together. Mm-hmm. So I apologize that I can't answer your question, but I know some places, the best I've ever seen is roads are touched. By touched, I mean they've crack sealed, they've slurried, they've fogged, they've repaved. They've touched a road every 7 years. That's the absolute best I've ever seen in my career. In most places, it's I've seen worse than we are here, and I'm not saying we're bad, but we're certainly not good, where roads aren't touched for 25 years, and we have those here. So what I'd like to move towards, and this is all I'm saying, is I'd like to move towards, because until I get some numbers to compare and create my answer, I'd like to see everything touched every 7 or more years, okay, 7, 8 years. Because that way we can just go around and pick a section of the city and do this one and then this one and this one and just keep going right around. Once we take care of the ones that need to be paved, then those can move into the slurry section as well. So I apologize for not being able to answer your question, but what I will promise all of you is that once we have 2 sessions done, I'll have a better idea, and I'll give you at least 2 full more years of plan. And once I have 3 years total, 6 sessions, then I should easily be able to put together a 5-year plan and maybe even a plan for everything. Okay. I know that's out in the future, and I'm sorry it's so far, but...
Well, the other thing I just want to make sure that we do, and I would like you to do, is to compare what our plan is with what the manufacturer claims we should be doing. And for the number of people that we have, the manufacturer is going to say that to run this machine takes X number of people, the driver and this and the guy in the back and the guy in the truck behind it, that they've got it. So it's not a matter of, well, we're so much different, or what. No, we're not different at all. They know exactly what it takes to do this job and how long we should be able to do if the weather is nice and great, right? So I just, in your metrics, when you come back and present and report and in your plan, I want to take into account what this guy who's doing this company is lectured all over the world. He's a high-end, high-tech guy that runs this thing. He knows what it should take, how many people, and what it should do, and how many miles we should be able to do. So I want to make sure, Bart, that when we do this, we don't just operate in a bubble, that we're operating within what the pros who do this day in and day out say we should be doing. How many miles we're supposed to be doing within reason. I get it. We have budgetary. That's different. You know, I mean, we have a budgetary. But from a standpoint of within X budget and what they have found from worldwide experience in doing this, I'm hoping we're going to be right in there with what the manufacturer of this is going to say.
Sir, we never will be. Never, ever, ever. We don't do this with 3 crews. No, hang on, let me finish. With 3 crews, 6 days a week, 365 days a year. That's what we would have to do if we were to meet the standard you just said. Now, what I am willing to do is go to Bull's Head or Modesto or any of the other cities that do this and see what they put out. And after at least a couple of sessions, I'd be willing to compare what they do to what we do in a minute. Okay, now we may not be as fast because, again, Bull's Head works 9 months a year at this, and they have a dedicated crew, and they don't do it.
I'm talking about for given period for given period.
Right. I would be willing to say yes.
And all. I just want to make sure, listen to me. That goes without saying.
Yeah.
You don't need to tell me that. I got that. What I'm talking about is that just apples for apples, man for man, truck for truck, time for time. I get the budget differences and all of that. I want to make sure that we are producing the amount of road that the manufacturer has proven all over the country that can be done in X period of time. That you can do.
I can do what I just said I could do, and if you're in agreement with that, then I would say yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Okay, is there any other questions? Is there any questions from the public?
Yeah, Dave Matthews. I was concerned here. I'm still confused about whether or not Sherry is going to be redone, because it's never been redone. I don't know whether you're taking it off or leaving it on. So the Sierra View and Mamie were done. So
Yes, Sherry's going to be done because it has not been done.
okay, and I'll tell you one other one in there. I don't know where it is on the list, and that's the Feldspar section in that area. It's getting really bad, and I'm also thinking maybe Peg, but Peg's not really quite as bad, I don't think.
Well, Peg's there between Las Flores and Drummond.
Yeah.
So is Feldspar.
And Feldspar's actually on the
Oh, the
list right
way.
there. You said it's
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is, on Sierra View, there is one little section.
It's up there, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Lauer. I don't know if you'll have these numbers, but if you don't, I'd be interested to get them at some point. For both the fall and the spring program you have lined out here, the total street miles that you're going to be possibly do. Let's just assume that we get a really ambitious and everything works great and you get all the streets done. How many street miles would that be, and the estimated amount of money that's going to be spent on each one of those programs? I'd like to know that at some point. You may not have it tonight.
I don't, and as soon as we complete a session, I'd be happy to tell you. When we track, because we have to be able to audit versus the SB1 money.
Right.
And we're going to be, audited is not the right word, but we need to be held accountable for the Measure V money as well.
Right.
So when we get done with this session, just like last year, we reported how much we spent on preparing the roads that we're going to be doing this spring for the SB1 money. We basically took the people's time, the amount of crack fill material, the equipment time, calculated what we spent. Now, we only had $176,000 last year of SB1 money. We ended up spending some of the Measure V money. And it turned out we spent about $330,000 prepping the roads that you saw that we got prepped. It takes time and effort to do so.
Right. And so, well, then obviously after the spring, you will have those kind of numbers. What you've done, the streets that you have in mind to do this coming spring.
Now, I may not be able to tell you what each street costs, but I certainly could tell you when we get done, and maybe not within a week, okay? But
Right.
I certainly will be able to show what we spent on the entire program.
Yeah, and I think that would serve as a good starting point, as a metric for making goals for the future. Looking at, okay, here's what the total cost was to do this many street miles, including everything we had to do, all the prep, the slurry, man hours, the whole total cost of that. The point I'm getting at is what Mr. Martin alluded to earlier, and you talked about. Getting a 5-year plan in place. Obviously, you have to know what you can do in a given paving season. How many miles you're maximally going to be able to accomplish, and what it's going to cost, and so forth and so on. So you got to know time of cost before you can then lay out and say, obviously the goal would be get all the streets in Ridgecrest done, boom, and then in some cycles, say 5 to 7. Maybe a few more than 7. Start all over again and just slurry. Now it's going to go a whole lot faster after that point, hopefully, and get there. But without a plan, you don't get there. So,
But to get through it the first time,
yeah,
takes a lot of prep work because some of our streets haven't been touched in 25 or 30 years.
Some 40. Yeah,
well,
I'm well aware. So. Anyway, keep up the good work, and it'd be really nice to see us get to a place where we could lay out a plan to the citizens and say, in 7 years, 8 years, whatever it ends up being, that looks like it's practical. And even if we have to spend more money to make it go faster, we see now we're taking in almost $500,000 from SB1, and the streets half of Measure V is reportedly $2 million. So we're talking $2.5 million a year to spend on getting the streets fixed. So we may have enough money to hire more people and go out and rent a second slurry machine and get twice as many streets done in a given paving season. I don't know if you agree with that possibility or not, but with enough money, you can always get more done. You may have to figure out a way to, hire, temp workers or something. There's lots of people around here saying they can't get work. They'd love to get something, at least temporary, that you could bring them in, do a bunch of street slurrying in 6 weeks' time, and double your output. And I think we got the money to do that.
One of the things you need to remember is that the amount of money that we have from Measure V has already been expended, some of it towards salaries. We hired 2 new people that are straight out of Measure V to be able to do this program. With the reductions in the gas tax, we've had to do percentages of other people already. So you keep saying $2.5 million. This year, we were down to 1.3 before we ever started in the budget. So if you want to say 1.8, sure, okay.
Yeah.
And I won't argue that, except if we're hiring more people, then the 1.8 actually comes down to whatever.
Sure.
So just a reminder that it's not all cash that we can spend specifically on that.
Right. But I'm just suggesting it's very possible we'll have enough extra funds that we could increase our output with some aggressive means.
Actually, like I said, one of the things I mentioned earlier, and excuse me for continuing to expound, is what I would like to do is there's a whole list of streets that are beyond what slurry can take care of. And what I would really like to do with the other monies that you're talking about is start a paving program so I can get those back so that we can get those onto the slurry list. So, and then once we get everything done, we'll probably be able to handle it with one machine and the crew we have on a regular cycle. But getting caught up is what takes some time sometimes.
Right. Well, I'll hope you bring that list to the infrastructure committee meeting so we can get started on it. Because obviously, if those streets are that bad, they really need to get attention. Because we're talking third world country street conditions, and I've driven on a number of them.
Okay. Is there any other public comment? Any other council comment?
I had a quick question. That list that you sent me in the email for the lane mileage, was that just for the spring?
It was, because that's all I had time to, that's right. It
Okay.
was, that's all the time I had.
I was just going to answer his question really quick because I pulled it up. So the spring program is estimated at 15 lane miles, but that's just the spring program, not the spring 2019 program.
Right. I'm sorry, I don't remember how many miles it was, though. I apologize.
It was 15.
No, that was lane miles. That's different. The calculation to the left of that.
Okay, 5.6.
All right, so 5.6 miles is what you need to compare against the 126 total.
Right, but I think when Modesto gave us their they did it in lane miles.
They did. That's
So they set out for 40 lane miles in their first season, and then did 70. But they're a bigger program than what we are here. So
they also hired a bunch too.
Right. Yeah, that's why I said they're a bigger program. So 15 is good for our size. So
Parking lots in subdivisions, the owners of the subdivision, malls, are they responsible for their parking lot, or is there a joint responsibility?
They most certainly are.
They are. Do we have any leverage? I mean, I just know, because I'm driving a Mitsubishi Lancer right now, and it almost kind of got absorbed into a sinkhole by, it was like, whoa, if I go on that, I ain't coming out. Over there around Del Taco, there's 2 or 3 in that parking lot. And there's also one behind that poor, pathetic parking lot behind Christie's restaurant that'll eat the other half of my car. I mean, do we have some kind of a responsibility from a safety standpoint of code enforcement of telling whoever's got those, they're awful. No kidding, they're terrible.
Yes, we can have code enforcement go out and take a look, and if it's blight, we can make them fix it.
All right. Can I log that in now? I just did.
Yeah, you can let the chief of police know he's the...
Okay, Jed, massive potholes by Del Taco and behind Christie's. Okay, gobbled small cars. See if we can do those. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and behind Christie's. where they have all that whacked out crazy unto these hills things hanging over the roof. The back alley of the back parking lot of Christie's, yeah. Yeah, okay, but really we're going to have a lawsuit or something, no kidding.
Okay, is there any other comments? Okay, motion?
I did want to say one. Thank you so much for putting this together, and I feel really encouraged by your presentation that you guys really are going to give a good go at this. So thank you, and I motion approval.
Second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
I do need to ask one question. Did you instruct me to take the roads off the list that we weren't doing, or just leave them on and not worry about it so it matches? I need to leave it on unless you tell me otherwise, so that it matches what the resolution says.
If we get going and we can do more, can we add more onto the list?
Absolutely. The only list is, this is what we're planning to do right now, and that's what gives us the money.
Okay. So I think leaving it the way it is fine.
It was approved
Thank you.
as is.
Sorry.
So we're leaving it, yeah.
All right, we are coming now to committee reports. City Org. Finance, Scott?
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, they met, I was out.
We did.
You reported at
We reported on the last meeting on that one, so no new info.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, time went faster than I thought. Okay, infrastructure?
Basically, in infrastructure, we discussed what we just went through tonight.
Parks and Rec?
Right.
Oh,
Yes.
we finished?
He wanted to add something, but
I was just going to say, I wasn't there, I apologize, but didn't you guys discuss at least a little bit what was going on with the wastewater plant? And since it was asked about earlier, that's what I understood.
I'm going to report on it during my portion.
It wasn't on the agenda.
All right, Parks and Rec.
So we met yesterday and we discussed the, so what did we discuss? We discussed the potential for sand volleyball at Pearson and Upjohn. There's already areas for the courts. It would just be getting nets and putting the sand in. And they're going to look at doing that when they have time in their schedule. Summer is very busy for them. And then that would allow the possibility of adult leagues. We also discussed pool options. And we're going to look at some of the other cities in the state and how much it's cost them to do rehab projects, or maybe even school districts to build smaller pools, because one idea was suggested was looking at a whole new one, because sometimes when you get into old things, it's a lot worse than what you thought it was going to be. And then there was one more item.
Well, there was some public comment, but I don't know if we want to bring that up. And
Right. I think that's it then.
That was it, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Youth Advisory?
We are working on some new changes and some new suggestions to that, possibly looking into some other successful programs around the state where we can find one that best meets our local community, but one that's already established, that has established activities and established protocol and established minimum number of hours, service hours that you need to work, and some sort of a reward structure. And we need to bring in some fresh life and some new programming into the youth advisory to get the students motivated and to get them plugged in to where they have, and I've got some ideas with that. So we're kind of in the process of taking a look at what else is out there and seeing if we can't get a good program or one or two really good options that we couldn't bring to the town.
Action? We haven't met.
We'll meet on the 16th at 4. And it's over in Kermagee. 4 o'clock.
I can't meet on the 16th at 4 o'clock.
Okay. We can see if someone else wants to cover.
All right. Since we meet so rarely, if somebody could just check with me and let me know, so I could.
Okay. Yeah.
On Tuesdays is difficult. So we'll talk. We can talk. I'll find someone to cover. All right. RACVB.
We did meet this last time. We meet again on the 10th.
Okay. Economic development.
We're going to meet next week, and we're looking at discussing developing a development guide, as was suggested by the IWVC and the Realtors Association. And then also, we've been looking into a Main Street America program. Tehachapi participates in it, and several other cities, and it just kind of helps revitalize the downtown area. And then we have ICSC coming up in May.
Okay, other committees, boards, and commissions. Okay, city manager's report.
Yes, ma'am. Just to give you an update on a couple items, I know that Mr. Lauer has an update on the transit system also, but starting with the wastewater agreement with the Navy, we have reached a tentative agreement on the easement agreement. It took a couple months for the Navy to get their environmental report done. It's been completed. We've looked at it along with our attorney. We're in agreement with what has been reported. Now the packet is going back to the Undersecretary of Navy for review and approval. Once it's approved, then they can do their appraisal of the easement land, and then we can meet to discuss whatever exchange of water there may be for the use of land. We're also working with our law firm on developing the operational agreement to make the Navy a regular customer. We've been meeting, I believe, weekly meetings with our attorney, developing the draft language. I'm hoping to be able to get it to the Navy here in the next couple of weeks when we're comfortable with what we've developed, and then we'll start negotiating with the Navy on that part. So we're hoping that we'll get at least a tentative agreement on all the language, and then hopefully the Navy will get through the rest of the reviews process whenever that time is. I know I've been working on it for a year and a half, and we, with the help of the local staff, local Navy staff, as well as Kevin McCarthy's office, we were able to get some significant language out of the easement agreement, which would make it fundable. And as for the wastewater funds, we do have approximately $27 million in reserves. That money, as we go along, that money will be collected and retained, and that will be part of our down payment for the new system. And we're hoping that as time goes by, we'll have to borrow less money, which will then equate out to less of the debt service. So, part of that rate structure was to create a sinking fund to be able to fund the new wastewater treatment facility, and that's exactly what we're saving it for.
Thank you.
And then the next thing is the financial system.
One more thing I'd like to add to that.
Oh, sure.
We're working into phase 2 of the sewer system itself upgrades. The first was along Church, if you all remember. We're going to it'll be next summer. We're working on the design right now. Actually, we're working on getting the consultant right now, but then we'll be working on the design. We'll cover the sections of China Lake and California, where the main is, and all of the manholes, and we'll resurvey because we didn't get really good pictures along that, and then we'll take care of the rest of the 5s and 4s where there's problems. So we're looking and taking care of all of that next year, and that will come out of the same funding.
Then an update on the financial system. The financial system is up and running. There are a couple modules that we still needed to get up and running, like time cards and that. We do, after hopefully the council approves the cost allocation study, we need to update the community development program, but otherwise manipulating data for the budget is there, it's accessible. I know that the Finance Committee has seen several reports that have been prepared by Ms. Freeze in the past. So I think we do have the ability to track and identify where our funds are going and where they're being stored at. So that's pretty much where we're at on that. And I'll let Bard give an update on transit.
A month ago, when Transit came and made its presentation on what the state of transit was, Council had a couple of thoughts and ideas, and I wanted to give you some updates. A year ago, and I don't know why Chris didn't bring this up at the time, when he was not yet the transit manager, he was just one of the trainer drivers, he and our current dispatcher went out to Inyakern and distributed a lot of flyers at everywhere they could put them. Since that time, ridership has doubled in the last year. In addition, just in this last month, it's gone up a fair amount since you asked. Yeah, he gave me the numbers and I left them on my desk. I'm sorry. The Randsburg, Johannesburg item, that has almost doubled ridership as well in the last year. So that's that's where we are at this point in time. They've already taken the flyers out there. They've instituted a Facebook page that you can find by searching Ridgecrest Transit. And what they're going to do is use that Facebook page to push out advertisement on the transit system to the people in Randsburg and Johannesburg. Now, the clientele, the people that live out there, one of them has an average age of 58. The average has an average age of 60 or 71 in the towns. So they'll be using Facebook to check on their grandkids, so that we'll get a lot of hits on it, or they don't use it at all. So we don't know which it is, so we'll find out. Okay. And then we're also working on getting the flyers further out to Inyakern. We're also talking about doing a mailer to all the people in Randsburg and Johannesburg. It's going to cost about $500, and only because it's cheaper for us to print 400 or 500 of these things, even though there's only 100 and some people out there, than it is to print 100 and some, because of the different printing press they use. So we'll have a lot more, but it's going to cost $500, but we'll have enough to last for several years. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we took what you said to heart and have been moving forward on it.
Thank you. Anything else, sir?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Future agenda items. Anyone on council?
So can we talk about the median here, or do we need to talk about it in a committee on Drummond?
I spoke to Mr. Pilcham, and he's going to provide a legal opinion to you on how we can proceed.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, there was an item that Stan mentioned that I thought was reasonable as an agenda item. I know you're going to answer. I'm not going to put the sewer on the agenda because we'll have something to bring back. But I would like us to talk about if the accounting system needs money to finish, then it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It's just a matter
Okay.
of getting the modules integrated. I know that we're also are beginning the process of switching banks from Union Bank to Monument Bank. So it's just a matter of, I'm sorry, Mission Bank,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
so we do have the ability to switch over. It's just a matter of timing and using our, we have so much staffing, so we have to kind of put it in queue.
Okay. Also, Mike, you mentioned that you would like to get off the Finance Committee, and I know we asked to put this on the agenda. Can we put that on the agenda to have appointments for the Finance Committee from council? Okay. I have no other agenda items. Anybody else? Okay, then mayor and council comments. Any council comments, please? Any mayor comments? No. Okay, we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate your input.